Good morning, brothers and sisters. It's the 23rd of May, and I got woken up this morning at 4:23. I went on Facebook and I made a couple of replies about some issues, and then I thought to myself, this final reply that I was working on should be good for a video, because at 4:23 I couldn't figure out, okay, what's this about, right? Because I was basically uncomfortably woken up this morning, and so when I got up to walk into my kitchen here to do this video, it was 5:23, and I didn't realize it was also 5:23. Anyway, like I said, my first reaction to these things is like, it's kind of cute, but then I realize a lot of this stuff that I've been, talking about is not cute, and somebody, I have to do this, right? So today's topic is going to be based on that thread that I was just reading, which I feel moved to talk about. And the question in the thread was, why is it that people in Sanctuary Church, or why is it that some people in the movement have a problem with Mother standing on stage alone without Father giving the blessing? And, they say things like, okay, can't you imagine at Father's Day? I mean, we know spiritually they formed a bond because they were on earth together. And listen, the fact that they're making that claim, it just dawns on me, right? The fact that they're making that claim means that they're making use of Matthew 18:18, what's bound on earth is bound in heaven, right? But they don't carry that principle of what's bound on earth is bound in heaven. They don't carry it all the way through. So basically what they're saying is, because Mother and Father in the physical bodies bound themselves, they're bound also even after physical life. That is why, we should imagine that Father is there with her. And Father actually bound himself to the entire planet and the entire human race, and Father many times set the condition in his flesh. That means he bound in his flesh the condition of rejecting Mother for the sake of the whole purpose, or even chastising Mother for the sake of the whole purpose. So Father manifested in the flesh while he was here unity with Mother, and also disdain for Mother's position, or Mother's attitude, or Mother's mistake, or Mother's failure to understand something, or Mother's failure to unite with something. We know that Father manifested those things as well. So, hey, can we imagine Father next to Mother? Sure. Should we? Sure, we should be able to. Why? Because he manifested being with Mother. Sure. But he also manifested chastising Mother or disagreeing with Mother. We also know that too. All right, so I could probably end the video right there, but I'm not, okay? Because it's also, it also dawns on me that Father did everything from a Matthew 18:18 point of view. He has to bind certain things on earth before he goes to the spirit world, because what's bound on earth is bound in heaven. So Father was very particular about the way the staging of ceremonies would be, because those physical structures, the physical layout and process of the ceremony has meaning, and he intends to make eternal claims in the spirit realm and throughout for the future posterity. He intends to make eternal claims based on the conditions, and so everything has to be right. It has to be structured in the right way, so that everything is bound on earth in a way that is going to work eternally. So he's really, serious about that. Um, if he says, the right side is the male side, this sets up a condition to, respect the order between male and female, the subject-object relationship. So by flippantly disregarding that order, we are basically setting the condition on earth that we don't care. Now, it would be much more innocent to never ever have heard that Father said the right side is the subject side, right? But since he did, and since we heard it, every time we heed it, we set the condition of agreeing with Father and agreeing with the principle about subject and object relationships. So one sister asked if when her husband's not home, should she sit in his seat? And I'm like, well, if you're actually thinking in this way, if you ignorantly sit in this seat, then it's nothing really, right? But your spirit is piloted to disrespect your husband if you know or think this is my husband's seat, and I'm going to sit in it. It'd be much more loving for you to respect him not being there, okay? But that's just my opinion about that. But here's a more serious issue, and the more serious issue is the blessing is supposed to come from true parents, okay? Now, true parents needs to be, for God's purposes, manifested. If true parents didn't need to be manifested, then the blessing could have come through Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Yes or no? Because Jesus is a spirit, the Holy Spirit is obviously a spirit, right? And for 2,000 years, they have given spiritual rebirth, right? But we haven't had the kingdom of heaven because we hear through the principle of this unfinished business of physical rebirth, right? And we need the physical Messiah and his bride. So the idea of the Messiah and his bride is not sufficient. So Father needed to get a physical bride. He couldn't be married to the Holy Spirit. I mean, the Holy Spirit is, let's just say, can manifest pure femininity of God, right? So, no problem there. Let's just say he and the Holy Spirit give the blessing. Why can't that be? Because that's not the ideal of God manifested. The ideal of God fully manifested is a man and a woman united with God, okay, making children. So Father can only make children and propagate the lineage with not only his spirit of true Adam and his physical body, Adam's physical body, but he has to have the spirit of the bride, the united bride, right? The internally united bride who's actually manifested externally. So he was looking for this bride, right? So only when he had this bride is the blessing even possible. Now, that means what's bound on earth, when this couple who's fully manifested give you the blessing, it is true eternally, it's true in the spirit world, it's bound on earth and therefore it's bound in heaven, right? So what about when Father loses his physical body? Then what? Well, in the past, when Father couldn't be there, there was masculinity representing Father on stage anyway. One time, what they call him H1, but Hyunjinim was on stage in Father's stead, and instead of True Mother, one True Daughter was in True Mother's place at some point. But there's always something representing God's masculinity and femininity. Why? Because you don't get the blessing from a spirit, okay? Actually, getting the blessing from a spirit is what Eve did when she got the permission to become sexual from a spirit. We call him the Archangel Lucifer, right? So that's not the tradition. The only spirit that was supposed to kickstart the lineage was God, and then from that moment forward, in agreement with God, Adam and Eve would become the substantial true parents, and there would never be there would never be a tradition of receiving a blessing from a spirit, even God, because your parents would stand as God and they would be fully manifested, okay, fully manifested. And, so the blessing is a gift from your parents. Now, so obviously the tradition that Father set up, did Father ever do a blessing by himself? No, he didn't. So why does he manifest this tradition of giving the blessing together? Is because you need the body of Adam and the body of Eve representing the internal masculinity and femininity, right? Okay. So what if you don't have that? Well, like after Father passes, you don't have that, right? So what represents Father's body when Father's body is no longer there? Well, it could be a male son, and that's why Hyungjinim said that either he's supposed to be there or some male representative is supposed to be there to make these blessings more legit. Because we've never seen the spectacle of any single person giving the blessing. It's almost like saying that the people that receive the blessing, they don't need to be looking at. It's like saying they don't, with their physical eyes, do not need to behold masculinity and femininity. They don't need to lock in that they're receiving this blessing from the masculine and feminine, from the parents. They don't need to actually see it. That's the condition that's being set. We're saying that people do not need to see God's masculinity and God's femininity as the source of the blessing. Okay? We're saying that it's enough to imagine it. So sitting there imagining is sufficient. So now we're opening a whole can of worms where we're going to imagine things, and like with Ingenim giving herself the blessing. I never agreed with that. I know lots of people that didn't agree with that. Why? Because the blessing comes from parents. You can't imagine that your parents gave you something that belongs to them and totally bypass them. That's called stealing, okay? You can imagine that the person gave it to you, like, well, I'm going to imagine that my neighbor who owns a nice Mustang gave me his car, okay? But in reality, that's not true. So that's why you need to receive the blessing from something that's masculine and feminine, represents God, so that it's recorded. It's recorded as an actual physical experience. Okay, this is the meaning of what's bound on earth is bound in heaven. And we know what is bound on earth is a vitality element. Actually, you looking and seeing male and female officiators through your physical eyes goes into your soul that way. And it's a treasure. It should be a treasure. There's, Father said 3 important times, right? You die, you get the blessing. You're born, you get the blessing, then you die, right? So this is a very critical, pivotal day, and it shouldn't be conducted in some way that doesn't cross the T's and dot the I's. I'm talking right here on the physical world, because this has an eternal impact. So anyway, I'm not going to go any longer with this, but I believe that if we think in a Matthew 18:18 way, what's bound on earth is bound in heaven, then a lot of the reservations that people feel about the way Mother is doing things may come to light. And, I think there are probably a lot of people who don't think in a Matthew 18:18 way. And but I know that God does, and I know that Satan does. So I don't think that you can afford to skip this lesson. And I think you really must deal with it. And I don't think you have a choice. If you're going to call yourself mature and responsible, you will think in a Matthew 18:18 way about not just the blessing, but everything that Father left us. All right, so there's one more thing I gotta say. Just won't leave me alone. You have to accept. You have to accept. You have to accept that your parents love you, and there's really no choice. And I feel like heaven is really saying there is absolutely no choice anymore. You can't be on the fence. You have to accept that your parents are your parents. Your true parents totally replaced your parents, and that they are now your parents. But, I'm going to talk about that in the next video. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.